Commander Sarah Chen stared at the data streaming across her console aboard the UES Vigilance, humanity's most advanced deep space monitoring vessel. The numbers made no sense. Where Kepler Station should have been broadcasting its regular status updates, there was nothing but electromagnetic static and the cold silence of space. "Run the scan again," she ordered her communications officer, Lieutenant Rodriguez. "There has to be an error." Rodriguez's fingers danced across his controls, his face growing paler with each passing second. "Ma'am, I'm not getting any response from Kepler Station. No automated beacons, no distress signals, no life signs. Nothing." Kepler Station had been humanity's pride and joy, a massive research facility orbiting the gas giant Kepler 442c, home to over 12,000 scientists, engineers, and their families. It represented the furthest reach of human civilization. The station conducted cutting-edge research on exotic matter, quantum field manipulation, and most importantly, served as humanity's early warning system for threats from the outer rim of explored space. Chen felt a cold dread settling in her stomach. "Set course for Kepler Station, maximum burn, and send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we're investigating a potential code black situation." The 3-day journey to Kepler Station felt like an eternity. Chen had commanded deep space vessels for 15 years, but she had never felt the oppressive weight of anticipation like this. Her crew worked in tense silence, running diagnostics and preparing for whatever they might find. When they finally arrived at the Kepler system, what they discovered defied comprehension. Where Kepler Station should have been, there was only debris. Twisted metal fragments drifted in loose orbits around the gas giant, some pieces still glowing with residual heat from whatever weapon had torn the station apart. The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers, a graveyard of humanity's ambitions. "Jesus Christ," whispered Rodriguez, his voice barely audible over the bridge's environmental systems. Chen activated the ship's advanced sensors, scanning the debris field for any signs of survivors, escape pods, or clues about what had happened. The results painted a horrifying picture. The station hadn't just been destroyed, it had been systematically annihilated. Sensor readings showed evidence of directed energy weapons, particle beam strikes, and what appeared to be some form of molecular disintegrator technology. The attack had been thorough, methodical, and brutally efficient. "Captain," called out Dr. Martinez from the science station, "I'm detecting trace signatures of unknown energy patterns in the debris. The atomic structure of some fragments shows signs of exotic particle bombardment. This wasn't human technology." Chen's hands tightened into fists. "Aliens." For centuries, humanity had wondered if they were alone in the universe. The discovery of faster-than-light travel had opened the galaxy to human exploration, but in over 200 years of expansion, they had found no signs of intelligent life. Some had begun to believe that humanity was unique, the only species to achieve sentience and spaceflight. They had been wrong. "Continue scanning," Chen ordered. "I want to know everything about what happened here, and prepare a detailed sensor log for transmission to Earth." Over the next 18 hours, the Vigilance methodically cataloged the destruction. Forensic analysis of the debris revealed the timeline of the attack. The station's defenses had managed to hold for approximately 4 minutes before being overwhelmed. Emergency protocols had been activated, but there had been no time for evacuation. 12,000 people had died in those 4 minutes. The most chilling discovery came from the station's backup data cores, heavily damaged, but still partially readable. Security footage showed the attacking vessels, sleek, crystalline ships that moved with impossible grace and fired weapons that seemed to bend space itself. The aliens inside were visible in a few frames, tall and angular with 4 arms and bioluminescent markings across their translucent skin. But it was the audio logs that truly horrified Chen's crew. The aliens had broadcast a message during the attack, transmitted on multiple frequencies in what the station's computers had identified as a mathematical language. Dr. Martinez worked for hours to decode the transmission. When he finally succeeded, his face had gone pale as ash. "They called us vermin," he reported to the bridge. "The message translates roughly to infestation cleansing protocol initiated. Vermin species designation, humans. Threat level minimal. Extermination proceeding as planned." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Chen stared at the translation on her screen, reading it over and over again. The casual dismissal of human life, the clinical terminology, the implications that this was part of a larger plan. It all painted a picture of an enemy that viewed humanity not as a rival, but as an inconvenience to be eliminated. "There's more," Martinez continued quietly. "The transmission included coordinate data. They're targeting 17 other human colonies and outposts. This was just the beginning." Chen's mind raced. 17 colonies represented over 3 million human lives. The attack had struck Kepler Station not just to destroy it, but to send a message. Humanity was marked for extinction. "Rodriguez, prepare a priority transmission to Earth Command. Maximum encryption, highest priority. Include all sensor data, forensic analysis, and the decoded alien transmission." "Already prepared, Captain," Rodriguez replied. "Transmission will take 6 days to reach Earth through the quantum relay network." Chen nodded grimly. By the time Earth received their message and could mount any kind of response, how many more colonies would fall? How many more humans would die while the aliens systematically exterminated their species? She thought about her daughter back on Earth, just starting her first year at the Lunar Academy. She thought about the billions of humans spread across dozens of worlds, all unaware that their species had been marked for death by beings that considered them nothing more than pests. "Set course for the nearest colony, New Singapore," she ordered. "Maximum burn. We need to warn them." But as the vigilance accelerated away from the debris field that had once been humanity's greatest achievement, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The aliens had been planning this extermination campaign. They had struck without warning, without attempt at communication or negotiation. They had made a fundamental error, however. They had assumed that humanity would simply roll over and die. The aliens clearly didn't understand what they had just awakened. For all of humanity's history, they had been a species forged by conflict, shaped by adversity, and strengthened by facing impossible odds. They had survived ice ages, world wars, pandemics, and the transition to spacefaring civilization. And now, for the first time in their history, humanity faced a threat that sought not conquest or subjugation, but total extinction. Chen knew that when her message reached Earth, the response would be swift and decisive. Humanity had spent 2 centuries building a military-industrial complex capable of defending their expanding civilization. They had weapons that could crack planets and fleets that could darken star systems. The aliens had just declared war on a species that had turned warfare into an art form. As the Vigilance jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying its cargo of horrific news toward the inner systems, Chen allowed herself one cold smile. The aliens thought they were exterminating vermin. They were about to discover that some vermin bite back. Earth had been peaceful for over a century. Its population focused on exploration, scientific advancement, and cultural development. But underneath that peaceful exterior lay the accumulated military knowledge and industrial capacity of a species that had once turned entire continents into battlefields. The aliens had awakened something that had been sleeping for generations. They had given humanity an enemy worth hating, a threat worth mobilizing against, and a reason to remember what they were truly capable of when pushed to the brink of extinction. When Earth learned what had happened at Kepler Station, the response would not be measured or proportional. It would not be diplomatic or restrained. It would be the full fury of a species fighting for its survival, backed by technology that the aliens had clearly underestimated. The aliens had massacred a human outpost. Soon they would learn the true meaning of human retribution. Chen watched the stars streak past her viewports and wondered if the aliens had any concept of what they had just unleashed upon themselves. They were about to discover that while humanity might seem like vermin to them, some vermin have very sharp teeth. The war for humanity's survival had begun with a massacre. It would end with something far worse for those who had started it. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the war room beneath the Himalayas, surrounded by holographic displays showing the current positions of every human fleet, outpost, and colony in known space. The emergency session of the Terran Defense Council had been in session for 16 straight hours since the Vigilance's message had arrived through the quantum relay network. The footage from Kepler Station played on a continuous loop on one of the screens. 16 loops of watching crystalline alien ships methodically vaporizing humanity's finest research facility. 16 loops of watching 12,000 people die in 4 minutes. Webb had stopped counting after that. "Status report on the evacuation orders," Webb commanded, his voice hoarse from hours of constant briefings. General Patricia Hayes, head of Colonial Defense, pulled up a tactical display. 7 of the 17 targeted colonies have received our warnings and begun evacuations. 3 have gone dark. We assume they've been hit. The remaining 7 are still outside our communication range. Webb nodded grimly. Even with quantum relay technology, communicating across the vast distances of human space took time that more colonists might not have. "What about our fleet deployments?" he asked, turning to Fleet Admiral Chen Yuan, no relation to the Vigilance's commander despite sharing a surname. "We've repositioned the 2nd, 4th, and 7th fleets to defensive positions around our core worlds," Admiral Chen reported. "The 1st Fleet is standing by for offensive operations. Combined strength, 437 capital ships, 1,800 destroyers and frigates, plus support vessels." It was an impressive force, the result of 2 centuries of steady military development. But as Webb studied the tactical displays, he couldn't shake the feeling that traditional fleet engagements weren't going to be enough. "What do we know about their technology?" Webb asked Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's leading xenotechnology expert, who had been hastily appointed to the Emergency Council. Dr. Ha Kim activated a holographic reconstruction of the alien weapons. Based on the sensor data from Kepler Station, their primary weapons appear to manipulate space-time at the quantum level. They can create localized gravity wells, bend directed energy around their ships, and their projectile weapons seem to phase in and out of normal space. Webb studied the alien ship designs floating in the hologram. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, like crystalline flowers designed by an intelligence that thought in dimensions humans couldn't comprehend. Defensive capabilities? Unknown, but likely extensive. The debris analysis suggests their hull materials can shift their atomic structure in response to different types of damage. Kinetic weapons might work initially, but the hull adapts. Energy weapons seem to be absorbed and redirected. The war room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's entire military doctrine was built around kinetic projectiles and directed energy weapons. If the aliens could adapt to both, traditional warfare would be useless. "Recommendations?" Webb asked the assembled council. General Hayes spoke first. "Immediate mobilization of all reserve fleets. Begin evacuation of outer rim colonies to defensive positions around core worlds. Prepare for a fighting retreat." Admiral Chen disagreed. "With respect, General, retreat won't work. If their technology is that advanced, they'll just follow us back to Earth. We need to take the fight to them." "With what?" Hayes shot back. "You just heard that our weapons might be useless against their ships." The debate continued for another hour. Voices rising as Earth's military leadership grappled with an enemy unlike anything they had prepared for. Webb listened to the arguments, but his mind was elsewhere. focused on a classified project that most of the Council didn't know existed. Dr. Kim, Webb interrupted the debate, I need you to compile everything we know about their ship configurations, fleet movements, and technology. Send it to Project Prometheus immediately. Several council members looked confused, but Dr. Kim nodded. Project Prometheus was so classified that even most generals didn't know about it. Sir, General Hayes asked carefully, what is Project Prometheus? Webb was quiet for a long moment, weighing security protocols against the unprecedented crisis they faced. Finally, he activated a new holographic display. For the past 50 years, Earth has been developing weapons of mass destruction that make nuclear warheads look like firecrackers. Project Prometheus has been designing weapons capable of destroying not just planets, but entire star systems. The room fell silent. Even in the face of alien annihilation, the scope of what Webb was suggesting took their breath away. The stellar collapse array, Webb continued, uses targeted manipulation of stellar magnetic fields to trigger cascade failures in main sequence stars. One array can cause a star to go supernova, destroying everything within a 20-light-year radius. Dr. Kim stared at the technical specifications appearing on her display. Admiral, this is genocide on an astronomical scale. We're talking about sterilizing entire stellar neighborhoods. Yes, Webb replied without emotion. The aliens want to exterminate humanity. They see us as vermin. They've given us no choice but to respond in kind. General Hayes leaned forward. How many of these arrays do we have? 12 functional units with manufacturing capacity for 6 more per month if we mobilize our entire industrial base. Webb manipulated the display to show deployment scenarios. Each array requires a fleet to deploy and protect it while it charges. The process takes approximately 72 hours to reach critical ignition threshold. Admiral Chen studied the projections. What kind of intelligence do we have on alien population centers? Limited, but we've been tracking their fleet movements since the Kepler attack. Long-range sensors have identified at least 3 heavily populated star systems in their apparent territory. The weapon signature analysis suggests their technology relies heavily on energy harvesting from their parent stars. The implications were clear. If humanity could trigger supernovas in the aliens' home systems, it would not only destroy their population centers, but also cripple their technology base. This is a decision above our pay grade, General Hayes said quietly. We need to brief the Global Council. Webb shook his head. The Global Council will debate this for weeks. We don't have weeks. Every day we delay, more colonies fall, more humans die. He activated another display showing real-time updates from the colonial frontier. 3 more colonies had gone dark since the meeting began. I'm invoking Emergency Protocol 7, Webb announced. As of this moment, Earth is under military governance until the alien threat is neutralized. Dr. Kim, you have full authority to modify the stellar collapse arrays for maximum efficiency. Admiral Chen, begin fleet deployment to the target systems immediately. General Hayes stood up abruptly. Admiral, Protocol 7 requires unanimous consent from the Terran Defense Council. I cannot support the use of stellar collapse weapons without proper oversight. Webb looked around the room. Of the 12 council members present, 8 nodded their agreement. 3, including Hayes, remained seated with grim expressions. 8 votes for, 3 against. Motion carries. Webb's voice was cold and final. General Hayes, you're relieved of command. Admiral Chen, you're promoted to Supreme Fleet Commander. Dr. Kim, you now have unlimited resources for Project Prometheus. The next 24 hours transformed Earth from a peaceful center of human civilization into a war machine unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every shipyard went to maximum production. Every military academy graduated its students early. Every scientific laboratory was converted to weapons research. The stellar collapse arrays were massive constructions, each one the size of a small moon and bristling with exotic matter manipulators and quantum field generators. Moving them to the target systems would require the largest military operation in human history. Dr. Kim worked without sleep, modifying the arrays based on the alien technology data. If the aliens could manipulate space-time, humanity would manipulate the fundamental forces that held stars together. Admiral Chen coordinated the fleet movements with surgical precision. 12 battle groups, each centered around a stellar collapse array, began the long journey to alien space. The first fleet would handle the primary target, a system the long-range sensors had identified as containing over 40 billion alien inhabitants. The journey would take 3 weeks at maximum faster-than-light speed. 3 weeks during which more human colonies would fall, more innocents would die, and the aliens would remain unaware that their casual genocide had awakened something terrible. Webb watched the fleets depart from the command center, knowing that he had just committed humanity to a path of destruction that would echo through galactic history. But as he thought about the footage from Kepler Station, about 12,000 people who had died simply for existing, he felt no regret. The aliens had wanted to exterminate humanity like vermin. Instead, they had created an enemy that would burn their entire civilization from existence. When the stellar collapse arrays reached their targets, whole star systems would die, and with them, any alien who had supported or enabled the attempted genocide of the human race. Earth had been pushed too far. The response would be proportional not to the aliens' current attacks, but to their stated intentions. They wanted to exterminate humanity. Humanity would exterminate them first. In the depths of space, 12 weapons of astronomical destruction traveled toward their targets, each one carrying enough destructive power to sterilize entire stellar neighborhoods. The aliens had massacred a human outpost and declared war on humanity's right to exist. Soon they would discover that some wars have no winners, only survivors. Captain David Park stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching the massive stellar collapse array deploy its quantum field manipulators around the alien home star. The star was beautiful, a brilliant blue-white giant that had shone for millions of years, supporting what long-range sensors indicated was a thriving civilization of over 40 billion beings. In 6 hours, it would be dead. Array deployment at 87%. Reported Commander Lisa Zhang from the weapons station. Quantum field generators are achieving stable resonance with the stellar core. Estimated time to cascade threshold, 5 hours, 37 minutes. Park nodded, keeping his expression neutral despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. Around the star system, 11 other battle groups were positioning their own arrays around secondary targets, planets, space habitats, and industrial complexes that represented the heart of alien civilization. "Any sign of alien response?" he asked his tactical officer. "Negative, sir. Long-range sensors show normal activity patterns throughout the system. They don't seem to have detected our presence yet." That wasn't surprising. The stellar collapse arrays used stealth technology derived from decades of research into alien sensor capabilities. They had learned from the destroyed colonies, analyzing every piece of data about alien detection methods. Humanity's approach had been invisible. Park thought about the journey to this moment. 3 weeks of traveling through space while reports continued to arrive from the frontier. 7 more colonies had fallen to alien attacks. The pattern was always the same: overwhelming force, complete destruction, no survivors, no quarter given. The aliens had been thorough in their extermination campaign. They had destroyed not just the settlements, but the orbital infrastructure, the agricultural stations, even the automated beacons that helped ships navigate. They were systematically erasing humanity's presence from space, sector by sector. But they had made one critical error. They had assumed that Earth would be unable to mount an effective response to their advanced technology. They had believed their own assessment of humans as vermin, incapable of serious resistance. "Sir," Commander Jang called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien planet. It's being broadcast on multiple frequencies." "Put it through," Park ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life with a complex mathematical language that the ship's computers had learned to decode. The translation scrolled across the tactical displays in cold, clinical text. "Warning to unknown vessels. You have entered sovereign territory of the Zilani hegemony. Identify your species and purpose or face immediate extermination. The hegemony does not tolerate infestation by lesser species." Park almost smiled at the irony. Even now, as humanity prepared to vaporize their entire star system, the aliens still considered them lesser beings. "Prepare response transmission," he ordered. "Full spectrum broadcast on all alien communication frequencies." He stepped up to the communications console and activated the recording systems. This message would be humanity's final statement to the species that had tried to exterminate them. "To the Zilani hegemony," he began. "You are receiving this message from the United Earth Space Forces. 3 weeks ago, you attacked and destroyed Kepler Station, killing 12,000 innocent people. You declared our species to be vermin and began a campaign of systematic extermination against human colonies." He paused, looking out at the alien star that would soon become a supernova. "You made 2 errors. First, you assumed that humanity would be unable to respond effectively to your advanced technology. Second, you believed that declaring war on our species would have no consequences for your own." Park gestured to Commander Zhang, who activated the external camera feeds showing the stellar collapse arrays surrounding the star. The devices you see are called stellar collapse arrays. In approximately 5 hours, they will trigger a cascade failure in your star, causing it to go supernova. The resulting explosion will sterilize every planet, space station, and spacecraft within a 20-light-year radius. The bridge was silent, except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Park continued the recording. "Similar devices are currently positioned around 11 other star systems containing major population centers of your species. We estimate the total casualties will be approximately 400 billion Zilani and associated species." He let that number hang in the silence for a moment. "You called us vermin. You may have been correct, but you failed to understand what vermin do when cornered. They bite back with everything they have." Park nodded to Zhang, who transmitted the message throughout the alien system. Within minutes, the response was frantic activity. Alien ships began launching from planets and space stations, their crystalline hulls gleaming as they accelerated toward the human fleet. "Tactical assessment?" Park asked. "Approximately 400 alien vessels converging on our position. Their weapon signatures match the ones used at Kepler Station. Estimated contact in 47 minutes. Park studied the tactical display. The alien fleet was impressive, but they had a critical disadvantage. The stellar collapse arrays couldn't be stopped once they reached cascade threshold, which would occur in less than 5 hours. Even if the aliens destroyed every human ship in the system, their star would still die. "Fleet coordination channel, full encryption," Park ordered. "All ships, this is Prometheus. Actual. Alien fleet approaching. Primary objective is to protect the arrays until cascade threshold. Secondary objective is to document alien technology for intelligence purposes. If any ship's destruction is imminent, activate the Lazarus Protocol." The Lazarus Protocol was a final failsafe, a quantum data burst that would transmit all ship records, crew logs, and tactical data back to Earth in the event of catastrophic damage. Even in death, the fleet would continue to serve humanity's interests. The alien ships approached with beautiful, deadly grace. Their hulls seemed to shift and shimmer as they prepared their exotic weapons. Park had to admit they were magnificent vessels, the product of a civilization that had mastered technologies humanity barely understood. It was a pity they would all be dead in a few hours. "Incoming fire," reported the tactical officer. "Multiple particle beam strikes, gravity well weapons, and what appears to be directed dimensional distortion." The first human ships to feel the alien weapons died quickly, their hulls torn apart by forces that violated several laws of physics. But the human fleet had learned from the destroyed colonies. They had developed new defensive technologies specifically designed to counter alien weapons. The battle raged for 3 hours across the space around the dying star. Human ships fought with desperate efficiency, using swarm tactics and coordinated fire patterns to overwhelm the more advanced alien vessels. For every human ship destroyed, 2 alien ships died in return. But the real victory wasn't in the space battle. It was happening inside the star itself. "Cascade threshold achieved," Commander Zhang announced. "Stellar collapse initiated. Supernova in 3, 2, 1. The star's death was beautiful and terrible. For a brief moment, it shone brighter than every other star in the galaxy combined. The expanding wave of superheated plasma and radiation spread outward at nearly the speed of light, vaporizing everything in its path. The alien planets died first. Their atmospheres stripped away in seconds before the surface rock was superheated into plasma. Space stations and orbital habitats simply vanished, their exotic materials unable to withstand the stellar fury. Even the alien ships, with their advanced defensive technologies, were consumed like insects in a furnace. Park watched 40 billion lives end in the span of minutes. The scale of destruction was beyond human comprehension, but he felt no satisfaction. Only a cold sense of justice served. "Status report from the other battle groups?" he asked. The communications officer consulted his displays. "All arrays have achieved cascade threshold. Estimated casualties, 397 billion Zilani, plus unknown numbers of allied species. Alien industrial capacity reduced by an estimated 96%. The numbers were staggering. In a single coordinated strike, humanity had effectively ended the Zilani hegemony as a galactic power. The surviving population would be scattered across distant colonies, leaderless and technologically crippled." "Any surrender transmissions?" Park asked. "Multiple broadcasts on emergency frequencies. They're offering immediate cessation of hostilities, reparations, territorial concessions, and technological exchanges." Park considered the offers for a moment, then shook his head. No response. They had their chance for communication before they started exterminating human colonies. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks, the same amount of time it had taken to reach the alien systems. During the return trip, reports began arriving from the frontier. The alien attacks had stopped completely. The few surviving Zilani ships had withdrawn to the far edges of known space. Humanity's response had been swift, decisive, and absolutely devastating. Where once there had been a mighty hegemony spanning dozens of star systems, now there were only expanding clouds of radioactive debris and the fading echoes of supernovas. When the fleet finally arrived back at Earth, they found a changed world. The Global Council had been dissolved, replaced by a military government that viewed the galaxy through the lens of total war. New weapons were being developed, fleets were being expanded, and humanity was preparing for the inevitable discovery of other hostile species. Admiral Webb greeted the returning fleet commanders with satisfaction. "Mission accomplished," he said simply. "The alien threat has been neutralized." Park nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed in humanity itself. They had always been a species capable of great violence, but they had never before wielded the power to extinguish entire civilizations with such casual efficiency. "What about the survivors?" Park asked. "Long-range sensors indicate scattered Zilani colonies still exist in the Outer Rim." Webb's expression hardened. "They're being tracked. Any colony that shows signs of military activity will be subject to immediate sterilization. We've made it clear that the Zilani species survives only at humanity's discretion." In the months that followed, the galaxy seemed quieter. Trade routes that had once been contested between various alien factions now belonged exclusively to human commerce. Scientific expeditions found the ruins of civilizations that had once existed in the destroyed star systems, archaeological treasures that would keep xenoarchaeologists busy for centuries. But there were no more living aliens. Word of humanity's response spread through the galaxy faster than light, carried by automated beacons and quantum relay networks. The message was simple and terrifying. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Any species that threatened human colonies would face total extinction in return. Some called it genocide. Others called it justice. The survivors of the Kepler Station massacre called it proportional response. The aliens had sought to exterminate humanity as vermin. Instead, they had awakened something far worse than vermin. They had awakened a species with the capability and willingness to sterilize stellar neighborhoods in the name of survival. In the years that followed, no alien species ever again made the mistake of underestimating humanity. The empty spaces where the Zilani hegemony had once thrived served as a permanent reminder of what happened to those who tried to exterminate the human race. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. Some species, when pushed to the brink of extinction, don't simply fight back. They ensure that their enemies never have the chance to threaten anyone again. Humanity had come of age among the stars, and their first lesson to the galaxy had been written in the light of dying suns.